What if one of the most offensive symbols in our culture was never meant to be offensive at all? What if it started as a secret, one so powerful that over time it had to be buried, twisted, and turned into a joke, just to keep people from ever asking what it really meant? Today, we're talking about the middle finger. Yeah, that one. The universal gesture of anger, rebellion, and vulgarity. But beneath its crude reputation lies a hidden story, a story few people know. Because once, this finger wasn't just a symbol of defiance, it was a symbol of power. Long before modern society reduced it to an insult, the middle finger represented something sacred. In ancient systems, Hindu philosophy, Greek teachings, and early spiritual traditions, this finger was linked directly to the element of ether, the invisible force that binds the universe together. The fifth element, the realm of vibration, space, and pure potential. Ether was believed to be the bridge between the physical and the spiritual, a medium through which energy flows, where thoughts shape reality and where manifestation begins. And the body, seen as a reflection of the cosmos, carried that elemental power in each finger. Earth, water, fire, air, and ether, right at the middle. But what happens when knowledge like this, knowledge about how deeply connected we are to energy, to creation itself, falls into the wrong hands? What happens when it's easier to mock a symbol than to explain its meaning? Maybe it gets demonized. Maybe it becomes a curse word. Maybe it becomes exactly what we think of the middle finger today. In this video, we're pulling back the layers of history, philosophy, and even modern science to understand why the middle finger became a symbol of offense and what it was really meant to be. By the end, you might never look at this simple gesture the same way again, and you'll realize there's power hidden in places we've been taught to ignore. Welcome to Beyond Reality. If you're ready to explore the knowledge they don't want you to know, make sure to subscribe and join us on this journey. For ancient civilizations, the human body wasn't just flesh and bone. It was a map, a living reflection of the universe itself. Every part of it held meaning. Every movement, every gesture carried layers of knowledge that shaped how people saw reality. One of the most powerful frameworks they used was the system of 5 elements. In Hindu philosophy, Buddhism, and even early Greek thought, everything that existed, seen or unseen, was made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Ether wasn't like the others. It wasn't something you could touch or see. It was the unseen medium that held everything together. Space itself, the carrier of sound, vibration, and energy, the realm where the physical and the spiritual met. In these traditions, the human hand became a mirror of those elements. Each finger, a channel connecting us to one of nature's fundamental forces. Earth for the ring finger, water for the little finger, air for the index, fire for the thumb, and right in the center, the middle finger, the ether channel. This wasn't random. The middle finger, reaching tallest and aligned with the body's central axis, represented expansion, transcendence, and the connection to something greater. Through it, ether flowed, the essence of potential, the unseen power that bridges thought and form. In yogic practices, ether is known as Akasha, the vast space where sound is born and where intention begins its journey toward becoming reality. What's fascinating is how deeply this idea runs across cultures. Aristotle called ether the divine substance, filling the heavens, carrying light, and setting the stars in motion. In Hindu texts, Akasha was the first element created from the self, the origin point of everything else. And in Buddhism, ether was the dimension where physical limits dissolved, leaving pure potential. For people living with these beliefs, the middle finger wasn't a vulgarity. It was sacred, a symbol of connection to the infinite. A reminder that power didn't come from the material world, but from the unseen spaces in between. Yet, in time, that meaning began to fade. The middle finger's role as a conduit for ether became a forgotten footnote in philosophy and spiritual texts. Slowly, its sacred symbolism slipped from memory. What remained was only the gesture, stripped of context, ready to be redefined by the cultures that followed. This loss wasn't accidental. When a symbol holds power, especially a power rooted in the idea that individuals can connect to and influence the very nature of reality, it becomes dangerous to systems built on control. Ether was more than a mystical idea. It represented the unseen forces governing existence, forces that, if understood, could be tapped into. Seeing the middle finger now, it's hard to imagine that it once pointed directly at the heavens, that it once stood not as an insult, but as a silent acknowledgement of the vast, invisible current surrounding us all. Over time, the middle finger's sacred connection to ether began to fracture. As power shifted across civilizations, symbols once linked to personal power and universal forces were redefined, sometimes subtly, sometimes with brutal intent. The middle finger was no exception. In ancient Greece, philosophers and playwrights still remembered fragments of its original meaning, yet even then, it began taking on crude undertones. Aristophanes, known for his biting comedies, used the gesture to mock and humiliate. It wasn't just humor, it reflected a culture already shifting away from ether's reverence towards something easier to control, ridicule. The Romans followed, calling it the digitus imputicus, the shameless finger. They used it both to insult and to ward off evil, a strange contradiction that hints at its lingering power. Even as it became a weapon of mockery, it remained tied to the unseen, used to repel curses and the so-called evil eye, a protective gesture disguised as an offense. As Christianity spread through Europe, symbols associated with fertility, natural forces, or spiritual independence became targets. Gestures that once represented cosmic connections were rebranded as vulgar or sinful. Phallic symbols, sacred in earlier traditions as representations of life force and creation, were reduced to obscenities. The middle finger's rise as an offensive gesture mirrors this wider pattern. Strip the meaning, label it shameful, and teach generations to fear or laugh at it. The psychological mechanics of this shift are clear. Demonizing a symbol cuts off access to the knowledge it once carried. Turn the ether channel into a crude joke and people stop asking what it meant. They stop wondering about the power of the body, the hands, and their connection to something larger. They forget. Across centuries, controlling symbols became a tool of controlling perception. And while the world forgot the middle finger's origins, science was quietly circling back to the very ideas ancient traditions revered. By the 19th century, physicists theorized the existence of luminiferous ether, a medium filling the cosmos through which light and energy traveled. It wasn't just mystical speculation, it was a serious scientific attempt to explain how the unseen shaped the world. Though that specific theory was later abandoned, modern physics replaced it with new concepts just as mysterious. Dark matter, dark energy, zero-point fields, scientific terms for forces we can't see but know are there. Invisible layers shaping reality, much like ether was once believed to do. The pattern is hard to ignore. The knowledge may have been buried, distorted, or laughed off, but it keeps resurfacing. Across time, language, and culture, something remains, a lingering trace of that lost connection to the unseen forces governing reality. The connection between ether, consciousness, and reality isn't confined to ancient philosophy. It runs through modern science, energy practices, and the growing understanding that observation itself shapes the world around us. In quantum physics, the observer effect reveals that particles behave differently when measured. Reality responds to attention. What was once seen as mystical is now studied in laboratories, proof that the act of focusing changes outcomes at the most fundamental level. Observation is not passive, it is a creative force. This is where ether, as the unseen medium of potential, aligns perfectly. In ancient traditions, ether was the space where sound, vibration, and intention took form. Modern science gives it new names: zero-point fields, quantum vacuum, dark energy. But the underlying idea remains: the invisible is not empty. It is alive with potential. The body, according to yogic and energy medicine systems, is designed to interact with this field. Breath, thought, and movement channel energy. Mudras, specific hand gestures, focus that flow. Among these, the middle finger carries a unique role. It governs ether, the element of space and expansion, linked to the throat chakra, where expression and vibration emerge. Practitioners of Shunya Mudra or Akasha Mudra use the middle finger to consciously engage ether's qualities. These gestures aren't random. They serve as energetic switches, aligning the mind, body, and environment. When activated, they support clarity, intuition, and the ability to influence subtle realms, practices mirrored today in mindfulness and manifestation work. In this context, manifestation isn't about wishful thinking. It is the focused direction of energy, using intention, breath, and movement to shape possibilities. The middle finger, far from being meaningless or obscene, stands as a physical conduit for this process. Its height, position, and symbolic link to ether make it the natural channel for engaging the unseen forces that govern creation. Even Western esoteric traditions echo this. The middle finger corresponds to Saturn, planet of structure, discipline, and karmic cycles. Saturn rules manifestation, grounding thoughts into reality through effort and focus. The alignment is too precise to ignore. The same finger that gestures defiance once signified power over the forces shaping the material world. Popular culture occasionally brushes against these forgotten truths. Films like The Matrix hint at hidden codes controlling reality and characters breaking free by confronting illusions. The middle finger, so often flashed as a sign of rebellion, unconsciously channels that same narrative, a physical rejection of imposed control. What looks like anger is, at its root, a primal recognition of lost power. Across history and science, the middle finger's role as a bridge between intention and reality lingers. Whether through sacred mudras or subconscious gestures, it carries an ancient whisper. The human mind and body are not separate from the forces that shape the universe. The connection is direct, physical, and always present, hidden in plain sight. The middle finger's journey from sacred symbol to vulgar gesture is more than a cultural shift. It's a reflection of how power changes hands, how knowledge capable of connecting us to something greater gets buried beneath mockery and shame. What began as a physical reminder of ether, the unseen force linking mind, body, and universe, was reduced to a crude signal of anger. Stripped of context, its true role faded, but the energy never disappeared. It lingered in the subconscious, in the defiant lift of a hand, in the instinct to push back against control without knowing why. The deeper truth is that the human body carries these connections everywhere. Through movement, sound, and intention, ancient traditions believed we shape reality itself. Ether was the space where that power moved. Science, philosophy, and spirituality, though they speak different languages, point to the same idea. The invisible shapes the visible. Symbols hold memory. Reclaiming them means reclaiming the parts of ourselves designed to interact with the unseen. The middle finger, misunderstood and rebranded, still carries that silent potential. A forgotten bridge between thought and form waiting to be remembered. Everyday gestures, words, and beliefs may hide more than they reveal. Some of them were never meant to be vulgar. They were meant to remind us of what it means to be creators inside a world constantly shaped by unseen forces. If this shifted how you see something as simple as a gesture, share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear how this changes your perspective. And if uncovering hidden knowledge resonates with you, subscribe and stay connected as we dive deeper into the unseen layers of reality. There's more waiting. One of the next videos on your screen might take you even further down this path.